So there is Taylor Swift content coming up. Don't you worry your pretty little heads. But there's another point I wanted to make about Travers Day before we put a bow on that. And John, feel free to bring up any other points that you had from the weekend. But races and days like that remind me why I love this game. You know, and just I thought about it. I was struck by like what a difference a year makes. Because we go back to last year on Travers Day, and it was bleak. It was a very, very dark time in racing to have Maple Leaf Mel breakdown on Whitney Day and then have New York Thunder breakdown on Travers Day. That was a horrible, horrible time. And we talked to Dylan Davis last week, and you asked a great question, John. You asked him, do you feel safer with the new rules, with the new safety rules? And he said yes. Mm-hmm. He said straight up, I feel like I'm riding sounder horses. I'm riding against sounder horses. And I think that you have to give a lot of the credit to that. Obviously, it's a one-off thing. You know, obviously, we could have had a breakdown on Saturday. HISA is not going to prevent every single tragedy. But I think that the industry and HISA deserves a lot of credit to getting us to the point where I'm not fearing the worst anymore. There was a while when after the Maple Leaf Mel and New York Thunder incidents where if I saw a horse opening up a big lead in the stretch, I was holding my breath because it was such a traumatic thing to see that multiple times. And I just don't feel that way anymore. And yeah, does HISA have some clunky pain in the ass, sometimes unjust effects? Yeah. And we should work to rectify those things. And I think they and we mostly have, but it was a beautiful, beautiful Travers Day. And I feel safer as a viewer and a bettor that I'm not going to tune in and see something horrible or corrupt or both like we used to see. And I just think it's worth celebrating that for this, that what that means for this year, but also what it means for the future of the sport.
And Joe, you know, your thoughts are spot on. We can feel more comfortable if the product that's out there is safer. And are there going to be issues going forward? Yeah, there always are, because we're dealing with athletes, and they have heartbeats and they have soundness, and things can change at a moment's notice. My mom used to always say that, from an engineering standpoint, there was no reason why horses should ever stay upright, because they have so much velocity and thrust on their legs, and basically they're running on the equivalent of your index finger. I mean, that's basically the ratio of weight to area, and they never should stay up, but they do, and they're graceful, and it's the reason why we all love watching them run and compete. And Joe, I remember it was in the previous show meaning the other place, where we did a show after the Derby. And I remember you and I were talking on air about how after every single race was over, we both counted heads. Okay, there were 9 horses in this race. Oh, thank God, 9 horses are coming back. That shouldn't be the way that racing is. But it was at that time. And now through all the things that are going on, it's getting safer and better, which is, what you and I have always tried to promote and be a part of. I thought the other thing that was good is that it kind of went under the radar a little bit because it didn't have anything to do with racing, but they raised $5,000 more for the backstretch charities. Shout out to Aaron Yagoda for implementing the dunk tank. So for a few bucks, you got to dunk, whether it was David O'Rourke or Andy Serling or Big Hair, or I think there were 6 or 7 people that were there that each had an hour each. And credit to those guys for being good sports and understanding that they could laugh at themselves and realize that people would pay money to watch them get dunked in water. And some people hold them under, but that was an extra fee to do that. But I think it was, when we look back at this Saratoga season, for the most part, we're going to look back with a lot of good thoughts and a lot of good memories, which is really all we can ask for. Were the cards always the best? No. Did they have issues with the turf and with the rain? Yeah, but those are God-given issues. We had no control over, or they had no control over anything like that. But the racing itself, especially the big racing days, I mean, it was electric. It was electric to watch it live, and it was electric to watch it at a distance. You could just feel how excited people were to be there and be watching arguably the best racing circuit in the year.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's just such a different paradigm right now than it was just a year ago. And it really was a beautiful thing. And that's because that's how I grew up. I grew up with just unbridled enthusiasm for the sport and for the big days and just could not get enough. And over time, with some of the cheaters and some of the breakdowns that you see, you just naturally, your enthusiasm is sapped a little bit because you're only human. And I finally feel like that has moved back in the right direction in the last couple of years. And I hope and pray we stay on this path, because it was a wonderful, wonderful day of racing. Wonderful horse across the pond that we need to talk about. You know, we don't discuss European racing all that often on this show, but we brought him up before. City of Troy, track record setting performance in the Juddmonte International. Aidan O'Brien says, this is the best horse I've ever trained. That is saying something, dude. He is arguably, I think, the greatest in terms of horse flesh, the greatest trainer in the world for the last 30 plus years. In terms of the star power that he's had in his barn, I don't think anybody else matches up. I mean, Bob Baffert, you could say maybe Todd Pletcher, but no, I think Aidan O'Brien, he's just has had so many great horses with obviously the backing of the lads at Coolmore. And City of Troy was just, he was stunningly good in that race. Shout out to the runner-up too. It's Clandagan. I mispronouncing his name for sure, but he ran an absolutely cracker of a race, as they would say over in jolly old England. But yeah, City of Troy, like I want to pull up the quotes from Aidan O'Brien, because you just don't, I joked that like, there was a running joke that like Gary Stevens every 6 months would say, this is the best horse I've ever ridden. Right. But this is not something that Aidan O'Brien does. He's not prone to hyperbole. And for him to say this is the best horse he's ever trained. I mean, John, I'm still looking up the quote, so why don't you go with it?
No, I mean, Joe, you look at the horse's racing career, and other than his first race back as a 3-year-old, in the 2000 Guineas, he has a spotless resume. He won the Juddmonte, as you mentioned, the Grade 1. He won the Coral Eclipse, the Betfred Derby, and then as a 2-year-old went undefeated as well. It is, just so exciting to watch a horse like that in these large fields burst through and show their dominance. Another son of Justify. Again, Justifies are running everywhere. They're running, in the States. They're running overseas. They're running on the turf. They're running on the dirt. Most of them like 2 turns, but there are some that can sprint. I mean, he is quickly becoming one of the top stallions, if not arguably the top one. With Gunrunner and not this time and into Mischief. They're right now they're the Mount Rushmore of stallions. And for Aidan O'Brien, who like you said is as buttoned up as they come, to just gush over this horse and say in his history as a trainer and as the top trainer over there. Just this horse rushes to the top of the list, just blows me away. I know they made an announcement that they're coming here for the Breeders' Cup Classic. Whether or not he can do it on the dirt, obviously Aidan O'Brien, you don't bet against him. He knows what he's looking at as far as horses that can turf and dirt. But I think their feeling is that they want him to win that race here in the States. Because it obviously just exponentially increases the horse's potential as a stallion as far as what they can stand them for. But I really feel like that they believe that they have a horse that can beat the Americans and beat them on dirt. And it doesn't matter if it's Fierceness or Thorpedo Anna or anywhere in between. He just feels like that City of Troy is the best 3-year-old colt in the world.
If there were ever a year to try the Classic, this is the year. Mm-hmm. Just because there is a dearth of superstars in the older male dirt division in America. This is the time to take that shot. And I pulled up the quote. So Aidan O'Brien said, "We always felt he was something very different. Things haven't gone right for him some days, but he still overcomes them, which makes it very special. He's a horse who loves to be up with the pace and a strong pace, and he gets it really well. He stays, he's tough, and we're hoping the lads might go to the Classic with him. That would be some dream. He is the best that I've ever trained, and we always thought that. Wow. He's the most special horse we've ever had." Wow. He goes on and on like that. I think we'll see the best of him when he bounces out really strong, is left to roll, gets in a massive tempo, keeps going. People will measure his stride, but the length of it in the last 2 furlongs is incredible, really. That's what he was like at 2. He just keeps going. And Ryan said he went through the line very strong. You don't see horses finish up going that far, especially over demanding turf courses the way he did. So I cannot wait to see him at the Classic this year. He will be one of the top stories. And, he is by Justify. The dam side is a little more turf, as you would expect. But like I said, this is the time to take a shot. wanted to touch on this story real quick before we wrap up for the week in review portion of this show. So Travis Kelce has bought into a horse with Team Valor named Swift Delivery. So, I mean, it's very fitting considering the power couple that is he and Taylor Swift. And John, I know you didn't want to tell this story, but you have a little bit of a connection to this horse, right?
Yeah, I have more of a connection, but this is one of those that Jon Green gets a thumbs down on a decision that he made rather than a thumbs up that I like to brag about. But Swift Delivery actually was a horse that we owned in partnership with Mark Cassie. Mark actually found him as a yearling, and we were going to pinhook him as a 2-year-old. It didn't work out. We ended up racing him, and he ran like 5. So before he ran, I should say, we needed a name. So I'm a Swift fan, not as much as other people, but I was like, Swift Delivery, that would be great. We named it Swift Delivery, and the horse ran like 5 or 6 times and hit the board, but didn't win. So we were putting a bunch of horses in the Fasig-Tipton digital sale in May and decided, let's put Swifty, who we always call them endearingly Swifty, let's put him in the sale. Ended up bringing $55,000. Our good friend Gary Barber ended up buying our piece out in essence. To become partners with the Cassies, and now the horse has won 2 in a row, and almost like it's got Jon Green's weight off its back. So now it's like sprouted wings and is winning. Has won 2 in a row, and is moving up the ladder. And somehow I don't know how Team Valor got involved, but somehow Team Valor got involved, and now they've been able to reel Mr. Swift in, as he's known, outside of the NFL, into owning a piece of him. But yes, for those of you who are listening, the original name was the intention that the horse was named after Taylor Swift, and because I too am a Swiftie, and do like to listen to her music, especially when I'm just kind of thinking about the show and thinking about what's going on and what to give Joe and Meg for their wedding present. I got Anti-Hero in the background. As a matter of fact, we named the horse Anti-Hero also, for those of you who are keeping score at home. But anyway, yeah, that was our connection to Swift Delivery, and I was a day late and $1 short, and I could have been partners with one of the Kelces.
Yeah, I mean, you've made a lot of smart decisions, but yes, I would have loved to, by proxy, be able to rub elbows with Kelce and Taylor Swift if you had stayed in on that horse, but we can't always get what we want. I just love those crossovers. I love when big stars invest in horses. And I saw another story this week, that like Thoroughbred Racing League thing, that fledgling thing that's happening. Lamar Jackson now has invested in it as well. So I just love when normal life celebrities come into our little funky world here. And Jason or Travis, by any chance, if you're listening to this show, come on. We are big fans. We'd love to talk to you and love to help you, in this little education process about racing, because I know you guys are super enthusiastic.
With our 10,000 subscribers.
This is the place. 10,000 subscribers. You could be 10,005 and 6, and then maybe Taylor after that.